In this video I'm going to be baking some bread outdoors using a Dutch oven in the middle of Storm Henk, which has got 80-mile-an-hour winds. The reason I'm wearing this hard hat is because baking bread is extremely dangerous. Hi, this is Everyday Prepper and welcome to the channel. So I decided to make a practical video making some bread using a Dutch oven outside using the barbecue. What I wanted to portray was, in a grid down situation, the weather's not going to necessarily be kind to you just because you want to go and make some bread and you have to eat. So, in a stressful grid down situation, you still got to make your bread. So I tried to rough it as much as I can and record as much as I can. The camera blew over a couple of times, so I've had to sort of redo a bit of footage. Hopefully you'll get the gist as to how potentially difficult it is just to cook something outside in really bad weather on the 2nd of January. Okay, so I've got about 900 millilitres of flour, or 800 millilitres of flour. I don't bother weighing it. It's just basically up to the 800 or 900 mark. I'm going to pour that straight into the mixing bowl, and then we're going to mustn't forget to put the the dough hook in there. So we'll do that, and then we're going to tip the flour in there. I'm going to put a teaspoonful of ground salt and a packet of yeast, and then we're going to add some water, which will be about 300 ml of sort of warmish water, and then we're going to get that going on the bread mixer. I know it looks really stupid, but I've got a big piece of wood wedging the tarp in the gutter, which I'm hoping will hold, but if it doesn't hold, I don't want to be brained by a piece of wood coming down in a gust of wind like this. So we'll give this a go. Right, let's go and do the bread mix. Right, this is the bread mixer we're using. It's a German machine, pretty old. All the buttons are wearing off as well, and all I know is that number 9 setting is best for mixing. This will actually prove and cook the bread because it's got an element in the bottom underneath there. But we don't use that. We just use it for mixing on the solar. I could cook bread on it if I wanted to, because it runs at a couple of 100 watts, and so that's I've got an inverter that's more than enough to cover that. But for today's purposes, we're going to be just mixing it in here and then proving it on a warm pad, which I will show you now. Right, this is the warm pad, and this goes to about 40 watts. It draws about 40 watts. Plugs into the mains into my inverter off my solar. So we're going to use that to prove the bread once it's been mixed in the bread mixer. Right, beautifully ground salt, pretty much a teaspoon, and we're just going to shove that into the flour, mix that around a little bit, and then I'm going to chuck the yeast in there, and then we're going to get it mixing with some water. Right, so I put the yeast in, put the salt in, the flour, just made a little hole down the bottom there. So what we're going to do is we're going to tip some water. I've got 300 ml or so of warmish water, fill that little hole up like that, and then we're going to get it into the bread machine. It goes in. Right, that's in. Okay, good. Now I just need to go and turn the inverter on. Right, bread machine's now plugged into the inverter and on. We want program 9, I believe. Start that. That's going to mix away, hopefully mix all the water into the flour. Right, flour's mixing nicely. I think we need some more water in there. Let's just do that quickly. Right, bit of extra water. It'll mix better when it starts mixing fully. At the moment it's just in pulses. Yeah, that'll start mixing now, and then as soon as it mixes properly, I'll start putting some more water in there. Started doing a full mixing now, so I'm going to put some more water in there. A total of about 300 mils ish. It smells great already. Right, I'm going to leave that going while we start the barbie up. So it's just started raining now. The tarp keeps trying to pull itself out of the wood battens that I've wedged into the gutter, because we're supposed to have 75 miles an hour winds today on the south coast, and a lot of rain, so I really am doing this at the worst of times. But anyway, we're going to give it a go. This wind is really going for it. When I tried this indoors, it worked really well. Okay, it's time for a lighter. Always have a backup. There we go. That's what it was supposed to be. So far so good. Right, just had to put some different fire lighters on the barbecue because the package just wasn't keeping itself alight. Every gust of wind was blowing it out. So I've had to take slightly more drastic measures just to try and get the damn thing lit. It's still going. The main concern now is whether it's going to set light to my tarp. Hopefully not. Right, there's my bread. Turned the bread maker off, all nicely fully kneaded. And I've got a nice little round tin to prove it in with some parchment paper. And the plan is to lift the parchment paper out of the tin and put it into the Dutch oven when it's all fully warmed up. And there we go. So there is the bread now proving on my heat pad, which is here plugged into the extension which comes through from my inverter off the solar. So all I want to do now, obviously I'm not leaving this side of this fire at all. There's no way I'm going to go in there back in the house. But the idea is to just get the coals warmed up enough so I can spread them out and then get the Dutch oven warmed up. Right, I've made a little circle in the middle for the Dutch oven to go into. I'll tell you what, that's really hot. There's not many coals there, but that is very, very hot. So get this thing heated up. The lid doesn't actually fit properly. It's probably just as well. So I'm going to leave that there for half an hour to heat up. So I've just put some briquettes around the Dutch oven, and those briquettes are really old and I think they had some mould on them. They absolutely stink, but as long as it gives me some heat. Yeah, the wind's just tried to knock down my tarp, but I've put my support back up, and I don't think it's been very long. This is almost the Dutch oven's been inside now for 10 minutes or so. So I think it's time to bring the dough out and chuck it in. Right, there's my lovely dough. Let's get this in. A little awkward, but there we are. First time I've used a Dutch oven, so I'm assuming if the parchment paper catches fire, it doesn't really matter, it'll just burn off. Hopefully it won't set light to the bread. Right, we're going to give that about 20 minutes and then have a check. I have been turning the Dutch oven around every 5 minutes or so, just to try and get some even baking. Well, the bread's been in for about 25 minutes now, and I'm starting to smell what smells like bread baking, which is great. I'm really worried that I haven't got the right temperature here, but I'll check it in a minute, and then what I might do is put some coals underneath to just do the base, do the bottom. But I know a common problem with Dutch ovens is that the base of the bread burns, so I've not had any coals underneath it to try and avoid that, but obviously I do still want to cook the bottom, so I'll check it in a sec. Okay, I just put some extra tarp, some extra bungees to try and hold up these bits of wood wedging in the tarp. So I've got those pinned to the conservatory there, and we'll see if that holds a bit better, because these gusts are going nuts. Well, that was lucky. That piece of wood there just literally flipped out in a gust and smacked me on the head. Luckily I had my hat back on. Always wear a construction hat when you're doing a barbecue. Well, this wind is really getting up now. The tarp's coming down. I'm struggling to, I've been hit in the head several times now by bits of wood coming down. So I'm going to check the bread. It's been in there for nearly an hour, but the temperature I don't think is going to be enough. The temperature is only about 70 degrees. So it's going to take hours. So I'm going to have to finish it off in the oven and admit defeat. So the key here is to have more coals. I should have had 2 ready to burn bags of lumpwood charcoal, maybe some extra briquettes in there as well. So next time round I'm going to make sure it's much hotter. So we'll check the bread in a sec, and we'll have a little look. Let's just see if it's doing it at all. It's not really crusting over at all, so but it is starting to bake. It smells good. I think what we're going to do is chuck it in the oven. Right, I'm going to get the Dutch oven out, and I'm going to put the Dutch oven in the oven. Use oven gloves. And now the dog comes out on cue, just when I'm doing hot stuff. Easy door. Okay, here we go. Right, so after all that, we had to put the Dutch oven into the gas oven. So we put it on about a gas mark 7, I think it was, for about 20 minutes. Now, normally we'd cook it in the gas oven for about 35 minutes or so. So the lesson learned from that was I certainly didn't have the barbecue hot enough. I needed probably some briquettes piled up a little bit higher around the Dutch oven to cook it all around, to cook it evenly. The crust wasn't forming properly. So most of my time was spent dealing with the tarp falling down and the camera falling over, and watching my head and being bashed on the head by bits of wood. It was a really good lesson for me in preparedness, because lessons learned from that will be certainly to get more coals, more charcoal, store it in a decent kind of airtight container, because those had been stored for quite some time. We haven't had a barbecue for ages because we've got chickens in the garden. We didn't really have the room to go doing barbecues. In the event of a grid down situation, if we needed to cook outdoors, then it would be really handy to have some briquettes that aren't mouldy. Those ones, I don't know what had happened to them, but they weren't really lighting very well. So I'd certainly store some charcoal and briquettes in an airtight container. I've got some airtight buckets that I'll probably store them in. I'm also going to practice the ferro rod outside with a bit of wind, using the cotton balls in Vaseline, because it worked really well indoors, and I was very disappointed because I just could not get it lit. But again, my attention was elsewhere. I was more worried about the tarp and a piece of wood falling on my head. So we did cook the bread, so there's no point really in going into the quality of the bread. It only basically started cooking before we had to put it in the oven, so kind of cheated. So I'll do another video with hopefully some better success, but certainly I've learned a lot about this. I'm gonna have to figure out a way of rigging up a tarp fairly quickly if I needed to get some cover or shelter up over that area. That'll be another thing that I'll learn from this. Anyway, I hope you found that useful, if not entertaining nonetheless. And further on, I'm looking forward to doing some more practical stuff this year, hopefully with some better success than this one. But again, all I wanted to do really was demonstrate what it would be like under a bit of hardship, rather than waiting for a nice summer's day where it's easy to light the barbecue, easy to get everything nice and hot. This was a struggle because I had a lot of other things to think about. So that was the point of the exercise. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider subscribing so you can get more content like this. And in the meantime, thanks very much for watching, and stay prepared.